Hi, I'm Jenifer Acosta, and welcome to the Max Loves Midland show.
Welcome back to the Max Loves Midland show. I'm your weekly tour guide, Kevin LaDuke. The purpose of Max Loves Midland is to align people, information, and momentum around a shared community vision so that Midland becomes a place that people choose, stay, and thrive. And with me today is Jen Acosta. Thank you so much for joining me today, Jen.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, Jen is a hockey mom,
True.
a poms mom, a real estate developer, and she's also a leader working to expand housing solutions, livability, and long-term opportunity across Midland County. Mm-hmm. Normally I don't take notes on that, but that's a lot of words for what? What are you up to, Jen?
What am I not up to? I love community, and working towards building a stronger community is really what I do day in and day out. And part of that is also raising good humans.
Absolutely. And you chose this place to raise those good humans. Your work really is hyper-local, and it's expanded to the region, but you also do some stuff nationwide. So I know the options were out there. You have family in other places as well. So why choose Midland? Why this place?
Yeah, it really started, we wanted to raise our kids in an area that really represented our values. Like, we're very close-knit, and, Midland really had that. It kind of started with, great schools and those pieces, coming back and really raising our kids and being near family. My family is here still, and it just kind of spiraled. I didn't necessarily think I would ever move back to Michigan, but I was convinced by the lovely man I married.
Who's from where?
Miami Beach.
Miami Beach. So this is a totally different place than Miami Beach. And I know that you spent time down in Miami Beach as well. Mm-hmm. We don't really have beaches the way Miami has beaches. I mean, I love the Great Lakes, and I'll put them up against anything, but you chose this place over Miami.
Yeah. One of the biggest things was really... It's funny, my husband always said he never understood why Miami was so transient. His friends would always kind of leave. They would come for college. They would come, but they never really stayed. And my family, we moved around a lot. And I think for both of us, we wanted to raise our kids with deep roots, right? And really feel rooted and grounded and have that sense of community. And really, as we started looking at the kind of life that we wanted to have and how we wanted to raise our family, there nothing beats the Midwest, right? It just won.
And I mean, your day is full of sports, driving, everyday logistics. You have all sorts of stuff going on. But how do these lived experiences really play into this idea about neighborhoods, proximity, and quality of life that you find here?
Yeah, I am an urbanist at heart. I live far too much in my car. It's the phase of life that I'm in right now, between driving kids and all those pieces. But I'm really big on thinking about neighborhood cohesion, safety, the way that you program a downtown, the way that you think about how families and people move through it, and how can we make sure that everyone is comfortable there, no matter what age you are or what background you bring to your residency. How do you really design a community that speaks to everyone's needs?
And you're a Garber High School grad, so you're familiar with our area, not necessarily Midland consistently all the time. You spent time in Bay City, Saginaw, kind of bounced around this area, Freeland. We talk a little bit about, what was Midland to you when you were growing up versus how you experience it now?
I think, kids always have the perception of others, right? Midland was, like where people were like better, like all of their parents, worked at Dow and earned $1 bazillion, right? That is kind of the perception, which isn't the case and wasn't the case then. But I think it's so interesting now too, as, my kids are kind of getting towards that preteen. A lot of my friends have teens. That all of those walls have really dropped down with social media. They all talk to one another from all of the different schools, and the fact that we're not as insulated as we used to be, and that they all know one another. They're all like Instagram and Snapchat friends, regardless of what community you're raised in. It blows my mind. It's so different. I feel so old.
What kind of places do they like to spend time in here in Midland?
I mean, My kids are always at practice.
Okay.
Right? They're always at practice.
That's always the shared sports parent experience. It's like, listen, we are in gyms, we're at these places, we're at the ice rink, whatever.
Yeah, they're definitely at the rink. My son has been quoted in saying, he thinks that like the fanciest hotels are the ones that have the courtyards because they could play mini sticks.
Oh, of course.
That's
Takes all kinds, right?
At the end of the day, they really just want to hang out with their friends, right? It's wherever their friends are. It's that community. It doesn't really matter where they are as long as they're around good people.
Absolutely. And so, like, when you picture this Midland that you want them to inherit one day, what are some of the stuff that you're working on that you hope translates over to their generation?
I really hope that they inherit a community that's like strong and resilient. I want them to feel like this is such a community full of opportunity. And that we're just going to have, whether it's economic opportunity, different jobs, a way to make an impact. I often joke when I teach nationally that Miami didn't need me, right? Miami didn't need me or my unique talent. They have a bunch of people like me. I don't necessarily bring any change to that community, but I'm able to make a really impactful change here. And I think that that's so important that, how do we make sure we have communities full of opportunity for impact?
It's extremely personal work for you, and you can tell that when you talk to you. And the idea of home is always personal.
Yeah.
But it also connects to much broader systems that we see throughout living that shape whether people can truly live and stay in a place and how they can shape a life in a location. So you're working on this incredible initiative called Housing Forward that's housed over at the Midland Business Alliance that's supported by different community organizations that believe in this work. But for someone for the first time hearing about Housing Forward, and we understand that folks aren't walking around trying to learn about these things necessarily. So what's the micro pitch on Housing Forward and what is it and why does it exist?
Yeah, Housing Forward is an initiative towards building more attainable housing in Midland County. And so all across Midland County, I work day in and day out at really looking at the data, the market factors, working with builders, developers, thinking about how we can responsibly grow and what residents really want in order to have the housing choice that our residents need and that employers who want to bring their companies to Midland County, that way we know that they have the housing for them. Interestingly enough, economic development never had a background in housing. And now, Nicole Wilson at the Midland Business Alliance will tell you she can't go to any conferences on economic development without being asked, how many housing starts do you have? Because companies will not locate in communities that aren't building new housing and housing for families that are our workforce. The average age of housing in Midland County, it was built in 1975.
And housing is changing so much, and the needs of people are changing so much. I didn't fact check this, so forgive me. I know you're the expert in this space, but I even saw online today just looking at our country as a whole. In the 1950s, 1960s, it was between like 50 and 60% of people by the time they were age 30 were both married and owning a home. Yeah. That number now, they have it between 10 and 15%. And obviously, those are two separate factors that they're evaluating together, so there could be some skewed numbers there. But it just shows you how demand has changed over time.
Demand has really changed. The average household size now for Midland County is 2.39 people. For City of Midland, it's 2.3. But we're primarily 3 and 4 bedroom homes when we only have about 2 people living in them. So, really that housing choice element is making sure that we're keeping up with household demand. Not everyone wants 2 acres and a white picket fence. Some people want to be able to downsize. They want walkable neighborhoods. So it's really ensuring that we have neighborhoods that also reflect our residents.
And when you look at our residents specifically, and you look at some of the data that Housing Forward has put forward, we know that it's about $45,000, $46,000 that somebody has to make, at least in terms of rent and affording rent in our area. And I know that only about 34% of the top 35 occupations can even hold that. And if you're looking at ownership, those numbers are totally different too. It's about $70,000, $71,000 that somebody has to make, and only about 11% of our workers here can afford that. Yeah. What does that challenge mean for us wanting to be a community of choice, even based on who we're competing with throughout the state?
Yeah, and it's really important that, anyone who's working in Midland, if we can really capture them as residents, we want to make sure that our employers are able to train them and retain them, right? We don't want to train really great workers at our amazing companies and then they find a job closer to home and we lose them and their kids are already going to a different school district. So being able to have housing at all different income price points is really important. And sometimes we have to be able to build varieties of different products in order to hit those thresholds.
I love having these types of conversations because when we look at the infrastructure of a community and you speak about housing as being just as important as other styles of infrastructure, I speak about the emotional connection people spend with their place as being just as important as other factors. So in your words, when you're talking about housing being as essential as roads or schools or everything else to employers, like how important is that to a community's future?
So let me give you an example. A lot of times we have residents staying in place longer than they ever have before, right? Low interest rates, homes are paid off, we've built neighborhoods, and now we have these 3 and 4 bedroom homes that are owned by empty nesters. Yeah. And we've seen the schools in those neighborhoods shut down or be demolished. And now we see other areas where we've built new housing to the north or to the west. And now we need to build new schools because all the kids live elsewhere. So if we don't actually build neighborhoods that can support residents, whether they have young kids, whether they're just starting families, whether they're able to age in place, we're not really building diverse neighborhoods for residents at all these different life stages. And what happens is we wind up having to move all of these other really critical elements of infrastructure in order to support our residents because we're not supporting them in the neighborhoods themselves.
And when we're in a room and we're pulling together ideas with a bunch of different people, we always talk about diversity of thought, diversity of role, diversity of people. But I don't think people think about housing diversity and what that means to the makeup of a community as well. And I think that goes hand in hand. Earlier, we were talking about some of the misconceptions there can be about a community like Midland. How does that translate over to housing, about misconceptions about our housing here?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of misconceptions in housing. For decades, it's been, it's either kind of 3 stories plus multifamily housing or single family neighborhoods. So obviously, there's been a lot more talk in recent years about missing middle housing. And what I see most often is people not realizing that they could utilize these choices. Take someone in Gen X, right? A Gen Xer right now likely has teens that they're thinking about sending off to college, that they are expecting that those teens might get their degree and boomerang back home. They might be living in a basement. And they're also sandwiched between caregiving for their parents. Right? So for that family and that household, if they had the housing choice to be able to have a detached guest suite on their house that 20-something could live in or that aging parent could live in, now all of a sudden they're able to have a lot more wealth and equity in the family. They don't need multiple homes. They don't need that aging parent going into assisted living. They have the ease of caregiving and being able to cook and provide meals for someone right there. And they're able to now offer a leg up for that, college student to come back home and build wealth for themselves as they're starting out in their career. So when we think about housing choice, oftentimes we don't think about that being an option. We think that everyone has to be so independent. And if I've learned anything about raising a family is that it takes a village.
Absolutely. And that's why the idea of community is so important and having people around you that can look out for you at all stages of your life, honestly. And when we're looking at building this diversity of housing, or when we're looking at new builds specifically or redevelopments, find there's a lot of tension every time that one of these projects gets introduced or conversations about projects come up. It's a lot of times the idea of, oh, we understand that we need housing, but this is how it affects my neighborhood and how it changed my neighborhood makeup. Yeah. So when you're navigating that work, and we're not on the government side, so we don't have to sit in those rooms and necessarily handle the vote, but at the same time, working in tandem to help bring these projects to fruition and bring them to the community, how do you navigate those concerns about neighborhood change and necessity?
Yeah, well, I think first and foremost, as much as we have the ability to talk to the residents, right? Talk to residents, talk to them about change. I always think that the more we're able to be proactive and not reactive, right? As soon as a developer says, I'm going to come and put this in your backyard, you're like, wait, what? I have gone as a developer like door to door before and said, hey, this is what I'm thinking about. When I worked in communities across the country, we've done patterning where I kind of go and catalog, okay, is it primarily siding? Do all the houses have front porches? Do we have asphalt or metal roofs? Are our homes made of brick, right? How can we try and design something that's cohesive and melds with the existing neighborhood fabric that isn't different? Can we stick to a similar number of stories? How could we do that? Would we have to change a minimum lot size? So I think that it's really important to know that, neighborhoods can change. A lot of people think that change means it's going to decrease their home values when it tends to increase their home value. So that's a really common misconception. But the more we're able to proactively plan with neighborhoods and with neighbors, the stronger that housing development can be.
What are some of those dreams in that space when you look at maybe zoning changes or changes that can be done by planning departments across not only Midland, but really nationwide or in any place that can really help an area become a community of choice? Because you and I talked a lot about like my grandfather changed his living situation and it was a drastic change from where he was, but wasn't what he needed. And it didn't support him across his life cycle. You talked about your mom and her moving and what that looks like. So what kind of builds can accommodate those particular changing demographics?
Yeah, there's definitely some policy changes that need to be made.
Yeah.
One of the biggest ones, form follows finance. Zoning gets a lot of attention. Zoning has come a long way. Midland zoning modernization is doing wonderfully. It's still really difficult to get a mortgage on, say, an accessory dwelling unit. You have to have the cash to be able to build it outright. So being able to find appropriate financing for more of these, housing choice is really important. I don't think anyone wants a 50-year mortgage and more debt. I think we want more fee-simple solutions to be able to get housing that helps us build wealth across our neighborhood. So that's certainly big. The other trend I see and that I've been closely watching and looking at is how can we really streamline the process. Unfortunately, it tends to be that if I wanted to, say I'm that Gen Xer and I want to have both a guest suite on my lot as well as an accessory dwelling unit or a granny flat, that essentially turns my house into a threeplex, right?
Yeah.
For me to do that, how many public meetings would I have to go to? Would I need a city council hearing, right? So the more complexities and layers that we add to it, it makes it really hard to be approved, and it makes it a lot more risky that our emerging developers or our simple residents that want this say that's too complex. I can't tackle that.
And that work a lot of times has to happen behind the scenes, and it's really complex work. And I know Housing Forward works a lot behind the scenes with local investors, lenders. What does that look like for you?
I love it. I mean, I'll say that, right? I do this work
Jen,
because I love it.
you're such a cool nerd. Get out of here.
I'm a really big nerd. I love problem solving. I think that there's something so phenomenal about being able to be that additional team member to someone that needs it, or a resource, or a trusted advisor, a sounding board, whatever it may be. But to say, hey, here's this barrier, or what do you think? How can we get from A to B on this? I love being able to do that work and being able to also bring some national trends and some evidence-based things into Midland and say, do we think we're ready for this? Yes or no? Is this important to our residents? Is this important to leaders? Is this important to businesses? This is what I'm seeing elsewhere. Do we think that this is something we should consider being an early adopter on, or are we not there yet? Do we not have this need?
Now, you talked about how you take a lot of passion in that and you absolutely love it. Was there a moment in your life where you're like, man, this is where I need to be at. This is the work that I need to be in?
Yeah. So I started my company 11 years ago. I fell in love with real estate development. So much so, I was making dirt for a salary in Miami and working just egregious hours as a newlywed. My husband was like, what? Like, I don't see you. You leave for work at 6 a.m. You get home after 6 p.m. Like, why? I really fell in love with the work and the community impact of the work. And then, being able to kind of hang my shingle and start in real estate development and see the long-term changes of a property, but also its impact on the neighborhood, its impact on a community, the way that the residents choose to live there, and all those resident stories. Like, we have a school bus stop outside the Times Lofts. That was done in 2017. And the bus stop, I think now they pick up, it started in 2023. So, I mean, it took 6 years for more families to live there, but it's such a win. So
Absolutely.
Cool. I would also say that when I started teaching for the Incremental Development Alliance, being able to not just do the work of real estate development, but being able to be kind of a trusted liaison and teach emerging developers and start that was just such an aha moment. I never thought I would like to teach, but really seeing myself in that role. I was terrified of public speaking. Now I do it all the time.
You're doing great. Look at you.
I was still nervous coming in here. But I think teaching was another one of those aha moments for me to say, how can I inspire this work for more people? I don't want to take it all on myself, and communities really need this. So how do we make a bigger impact?
And you talked about local ownership a little bit and the importance of that long-term stability for a community. And I think you used the term community wealth building.
Yes.
What does that mean?
So I look at community wealth building or generational wealth building as really that longevity, right? If all outsiders kind of own pieces of Midland, we're really just a balance sheet, right? We're a number on a balance sheet. Local owners, they care about the tenants. They care more about the neighborhood, the fabric. They care about the local economy. And essentially, we're creating more local entrepreneurs, right? Real estate development, every deal is its own business plan. They're more likely to buy local, whether that's, utilizing local accountants, utilizing local web designers, all of these pieces. It makes such a more resilient local economy. And generational wealth building is really that pride in ownership, whether it's making the housing choices and the family choices where you're going to inherit something. You have that equity, right? Homeownership has always been about equity building, and I believe in equitable neighborhoods and housing choice to really help families build generational wealth. One other trend that we're really seeing nationwide is more and more aging seniors go into assisted living, and then you have to almost reverse mortgage or sell the home in order to cover the cost of care, because family members aren't doing that level of care, or they don't live nearby. They moved away a long time ago. And so now there's nothing left for that next generation to inherit. You've spent it all on care. So sometimes it's creating more simplified models and going back to basics of the way things were done for hundreds of years to help preserve wealth and equity.
And when we're talking about passing things down to a younger generation, that goes hand in hand with this idea of you want as many young professionals in your area as possible because they're the ones that are going to have the longest life cycle within the place if they choose that place and stay there. Midland was just named the best place to retire, which is great. My dream is that it's named the best place, period. And I think a lot of those components of being the best place to retire are also included in that. So I do think we're a pretty amazing place to live. But when we look at wanting to attract new workers to our area, when we have this awesome hospital that employs a lot of people, we have these huge companies in our area that employ a lot of people, and we want them to choose Midland to live in and not necessarily become a commuter town. I look at these newer builds like, the press at Midland Daily News making way for new housing, or places developing new housing in areas that are desired. What are young professionals looking for when they're moving into an area? Probably affordability first, is what I'm guessing.
Well, definitely something that they can afford, but also certainly, they want that walkability. They want that connectedness, right? Is there a place where they could, step out their door and make it to a trail or make it to a coffee shop? Um, the affordability is probably the more difficult side. We are less affordable than our neighboring cities, especially for a one-income household. So that one-income household has a harder time being able to rent or own in Midland currently, and being able to kind of have some, whether it's townhomes that are in the downtown area, condos, more apartments that are walkable, really more housing options will really help us get there.
And everyday residents definitely have an interest in this because it affects the way that we live in the community. And if we're looking to become a place that continues to thrive, what type of advocacy can we do as just everyday citizens here in Midland?
So everyday citizens can do a lot. First, I think, the hardest part is recognizing that the system has only given us two choices. The system has only given us like multifamily downtown or single family housing.
Absolutely.
And is there something better that fits you? Is there something that would be easier for the way that you want to live your life, the way that you want to take care of your family? And so that's one of the biggest pieces, is going ahead and feeling confident or asking questions and being curious about what else could exist. And that way we are able to kind of figure out how we can finance these other options and build other pieces.
A lot of the really cool components of your work is building local capacity, not only as a full community, but also within individual people. So I want to learn a little bit more about the Developer Collective, and I know this is something you're really excited about. So what is some of the work that's been going on over there to support emerging local investors, developers, or just folks that want to learn more?
Well, one, I think you need to come.
Okay.
You need to come
I'll
to a
make a
meeting.
commitment. I will come to a meeting.
Perfect. Developer Collective started last year. It's really kind of a mix of this casual meetup where we come together once a month and network with one another. We have some people that are contractors and builders. Some own short-term rentals. Some work in area nonprofits in housing. And we have a chance to just kind of spitball and bounce ideas off one another, talk about data markets, talk about maybe grant funding cycles that are coming up, or all of the different elements of development. So last year, every session had a bit of a focus on whether it was negotiating deal contracts, or how to put together a pro forma, how to read a pro forma, how do you kind of think through it so that it's not this scary thing, and what's really important in it, about property management and maintenance. And this year, I think we're going on tour. Next week we have, next week we have someone coming in to talk to the group about kind of their experience. So we're bringing in experienced local investors that have been doing this work, that own rentals, that chose to invest in Midland, to kind of talk about their experiences, and to also be able to get out and see some of these developments and some of these buildings. And whether it's commercial or residential, we really want to make sure that we're exposing them to all sorts of options.
So your work takes place not only within physical homes, but also this knowledge bank that you can't see, like that knowledge for community members in general as well.
Oh, yeah.
Which is so important too, because when you're arming people with knowledge, that's that stuff that we can carry on, even if we're not building physical homes at the moment.
It takes time to build that pipeline,
Yeah.
and that information sharing and having a trusted resource that, I always start with, what is it that you intend to do? What are the goals? What are the values? What is the neighborhood? Tell me what it is that you'd like to do, and then let's figure out how we can get you there. So I always say I want to meet people where they are and really start with that base first and foremost.
We're talking a lot about this hyper-local work here in Midland County or here within Midland, but how does this play into the much larger scheme of our region, let alone our state?
So our region, we do have a lot of commuters. Midland right now, we just did a housing study last year, and nearly 19,000 people work in Midland that don't live here. So I see that as a little bit at risk, right?
Absolutely.
You know, if 8,000 of those people decide to get a job closer to home, we've just lost a major backbone of our workforce. Or, you know, their kids are choosing to go to different schools and not to Midland Public Schools, all of those elements. And choice is good, right? I speak about housing choice. I like a local regional economy. But I also think, you know, we don't want to displace people who want to have the option to call Midland home. And they already work here, so we need to make sure that we have that ability.
So if all of this work ultimately is going to point to the type of community that Midland is going to become, or at least works in tandem with a bunch of other factors about the type of community that Midland will become, if Housing Forward succeeds over the next decade, what do we look like in 10 years?
Gosh, I would hope that in 10 years we're definitely aging. I'm going to say that, like, first and foremost. In the next 5 years, our 75 plus residents, it's going to increase by 15%. So in the short term, in the 5 years, I think it's really important that we build more single-story homes that are more barrier-free, accessibility-friendly, so that people can choose to age in place in the community as much as they want. The benefit of that is young professionals often want that similar piece. They might have a family, they might have kids, they can get in and out with a stroller. So I think first and foremost, how do we address kind of the housing choice and the gaps that we're seeing that our residents need so that we can be more resilient? I'd like us to be a community of opportunity and choice, where everyone feels like they have the option to come and call Midland home and start a business here, worry less about rent, don't worry about the mortgage payment so much, worry about the fun stuff in life, but really feel like they're so supported in this incredible community we have.
So what kind of community partnerships give you the most energy looking forward?
Oh, gosh. There's so many, I feel like, in Midland, the community partnerships. First and foremost, I really like the economic development lens that sits behind Housing Forward. I think that that's an incredible partnership. We're also supported by the Midland Area Community Foundation and the Strosacker Foundation. So the fact that they see, you know, housing as a really critical piece to support residents and to help them build that economic growth for themselves. That's, of course, going to be my favorite collaboration because it lets me wake up and do what I love every day.
Naturally.
Every day.
Hey, we got to be honest about it sometimes, right?
One of my favorites, which I shared with you too, is I love the Santa School. I am such a nerd for the Santa School. I love seeing the Center for the Arts auditorium with all the green chairs filled up full of Santas. I will text like our CEO, Matt Travis, right now and be like, will you send me any like footage of the Santas? I'm such a nerd for it.
Quick board plug.
I am definitely a big advocate for the Center for the Arts and proud to serve on their board. They have me until 2028. I'll term out in 2028.
So what other kind of stuff are you involved in then? You're on the board over at the Center for the Arts. I know you're spending all this time in ice rinks and gymnasiums, but there's got to be more that's going on too, right?
Yeah, I'm also on the board of Incremental Development Alliance. So I woke up at 7 a.m. to a text from a colleague who's based in Arkansas saying she got exposed to the flu. And if she comes down with it, I will have to go to Vermont and teach on Saturday.
Oh my gosh.
So that's like sometimes.
Your husband's like, awesome, great news.
Yeah, I told him this morning and he was like, wait, like you have to actually go to Vermont?
Oh,
I was
no.
like, yeah.
Oh, no.
We'll see. Fingers crossed she doesn't get the flu. If so, I'll just head to Vermont really quick.
Yeah,
I'll
just
fly out, fly back for the weekend.
Quick move. You got to stay at one of those courtyards, though, so you can go play whatever.
Mini sticks?
Yeah, mini sticks, whatever your son likes to play.
Yeah. So, you know, I there's definitely some curveballs. I think also, you know, I'm definitely a big volunteer. I like to get involved in different things. I think that's the fun part about this. That's actually one of the reasons I started as a real estate developer. I started serving on the downtown management board in Bay City. I was working downtown. My mom had been on it. My dad had owned businesses. And I said, okay, well, got a time to get involved in the community. And it kind of wound up arming me with some of that market data and everything to make an even bigger impact. So I always tell people, just get involved in some way. Other than that, you'll probably see me like baking. I'm always baking. That's probably my go-to on the weekends. Nights and weekends, I will be cooking up a storm.
We know where we're going this weekend, if you're not in Vermont at least.
Yeah.
So anything commercially that's coming to the region that you're excited about? It doesn't even necessarily need to be in Midland, but anything that you just are kind of like, this has been announced and this is fun. Or you can break some news. I don't know if you're allowed to do any of that, but.
So I will say, I do have one that I'm interested in, and it's been, maybe it's a bit of a news breaker, maybe not. So we have a new restaurant coming into my building in Bay City, the Legacy.
Awesome.
So my table, the space has been vacant since July, and we got a call over winter break, and restaurant owners from Caseville.
Beachies, right?
Beachies.
Yeah.
Is coming in, and I love that they call Bay City the big city.
I know. All the content, we were sharing it back and forth in some group chats that I have.
Were you?
Yeah, my fiance is from the Thumb, so she went to North Huron. We always go back to Caseville for, random things, whether that's just to go visit the state park or Cheeseburger Festival.
Yeah.
Not for the faint of heart, but Cheeseburger Festival. So we're like, oh my gosh, she's referring to Bay City as the big city, which
awesome.
is how I talked about Midland growing up. So
Yeah.
I was really excited about that.
Yeah, I'm really excited. She's filling the space full of color. I think it's really great too. They're a family business. So her mom has owned all of these restaurants for a long time, and she's a triplet. So she has two brothers. They're triplets. They're 22. Her and one of her brothers decided to forego college and just start working in the restaurant straight out of the gate. And Kyle's going to be primarily running the restaurant there. So I think that's going to be fun. I'm most interested too in the fact it'll be a cafe that's open all day. A lot of restaurants post-COVID are only open after 4:00. And being able to, still have a place to take that lunch meeting, to grab a great salad, to pop in for a cup of coffee, to be able to take your kids and go to brunch. I'm a big foodie, so I like always need to know what's open when so that I can eat.
That's so good and so much fun too. And also, Josh, clip this up, put it on the TikTok camera because she has a great TikTok following too. So if you want to learn anything more about what they're doing over in Caseville, I say go check that out. And if it pops up next on your algorithm, we know that the internet's listening to us right now. Yeah. So let's say that you were planning a trip for someone to come here to Midland. Ooh. And you were planning a day for them.
Yeah.
This is something I didn't prep you with, but it is something I asked every show now for the last few shows.
Okay.
So what does a day in Midland look like at your recommendation?
What's the season?
Ooh, I mean, you can plan it however you want. Let's say someone's coming here. We're coming up on spring, so snow's starting finally to melt. What does a springtime day in Midland look like?
Yeah. We're going to start off with crepes.
Okay.
All right. We're going out for crepes. And we're grabbing coffee. Definitely a tour of Dow Gardens. Being able to check that out is really key. Where would I go for lunch? I'd probably cook because that's just who I am. There's just going to be like afternoon pastries, a light lunch. So
what's your local supermarket? Where are you going to grab your stuff from?
Oh,
are you going to go to like Lalonde's? You're going to go to Eastman? You're going to go to Jack's? Are you Meyer?
Like anything that can get delivered to my house.
Oh, okay.
I do not go out shopping. That's my downfall. It is a rare case that you'll see me in a grocery store. I'm like, what can show up at the house? I love Aldi. I'll be honest. I love Aldi. They've got some great stuff for sure. Lalonde's will do the pop-in, get the specialty pieces. Eastman for cheese. My husband's Spanish and Cuban. Sometimes we've got to go get like
gotta have that good flavor, yeah.
Charcuterie.
Absolutely.
So all of those things. And then maybe if there's something going on, Center for the Arts, going out for food. I think the biggest piece would be like curating a really fun group of people to hang out with.
Big time.
Like, that's the best part about this area is like the people. When my husband first came here, we got engaged after 3 months of dating. We flew to Michigan the very next day. And I had to go into the bank, and I'm going into the bank, and then I'm in line, and he goes, babe. And I'm like, what? Did you hear that? I said, no, what? He goes, I held the door open for that lady and she said, thank you. And I was like,
he wasn't used to the Midwest nice.
And I was like, oh, yeah. She said, thank you. He goes, no, that hasn't happened in years. Like, that hasn't happened to me in years.
Amazing.
He was so taken aback by the little things. They are so meaningful to him. It's the people. I feel like that's the coolest part is no matter where you are, catch a good sunset.
Oh, big time.
Midwest sunsets, State Park Beach, all of those pieces. But I feel like you need a golden hour moment.
Absolutely.
If you're coming here.
Now let's imagine that this day is now happening 20 years from now. What are some of your hopes for this community in the long run and for this place that we call home?
Yeah. The biggest piece is that you can have a future here. Right? You can really see yourself here. You choose this area. You choose it because it's resilient. You aren't worrying about the cost of rent or the mortgage payments, but you feel safe and secure and like you're going to have a strong economic future and a great education and robust job opportunities because you call Midland home. Like that is really the goal. That is the piece of it, that at the end of the day, you don't feel like our local economy is fragile whatsoever, but you're able to almost choose a neighborhood to call your home, and it has a house for you for all of those ages and life stages where you can really feel deeply rooted. My goal is always to have that really strong sense of safety and vibrancy in a community that supports the residents and makes them feel like this is exactly where I'm meant to be and this is the impact I can make.
Well, Jen, I think you've painted a really beautiful picture about the intersection of how housing plays all over the board, whether we're talking how it plays into childcare, how it plays into livability, how it plays into talent development retention, and how it is an essential portion of economic development. So finally, let's give them one more time. Where can they find out more information about Housing Forward and the work that you are doing?
You can find out more information about Housing Forward on our website through the Midland Business Alliance, also Facebook and LinkedIn. Last but not least, on March 4th, we have a summit. We have a regional housing summit at the Center for the Arts, which is free for all, and you can easily register online.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you guys for being here with us today as well. It's been another great episode of the Maxwell's Midland Show. We are happy to be back on board, and we are hoping to keep these coming to you weekly. You will have more episodes with awesome topics like the one you heard about today. Also, don't forget, go to maxwellsmidland.com and check out our community calendar. We've had over 6,000 events posted there. That's over 6,000 opportunities for you to meet with one another, to find place with one another, maybe to fall in love with this community even a little bit more and find something to do. So next time, as we say here on the Maxwell's Midland Show, if you have a problem and a bridge isn't going to cut it, just build a tridge. Thank you so much, and we will see you again next week. Subscribe wherever you consume media. Maxwell's Midland is your entertainment, resources, and collective improvement hub for Midland County. Plan your next adventure in Midland at maxwellsmidland.com.